Hi there. Well, I have been trying to figure out how to put together a credible, legible, concise, meaningful, and enthusiastic report on this incredible breakthrough of the Southwest projects. And I've got way too much material, so I'm just going to cut to the chase and we're going to do outcomes and proofs. The two sections in this video, after I give you a little intro, are going to be called Outcomes and Prove It. So, the Southwest Projects. I'm Chris Searles. I'm the founder of BioIntegrity and the creator of this project, Rainmaking with Trees. In late May, I started to realize that the hot air coming up from Mexico that was plaguing central Texas only could be solved through strategic hydration, the rainmaking with trees, and some of the other things I've been doing. And I set out on a plan to do that. That's in some of the prior videos. The plan was a model for what to do. Then we pivoted on the model according to what made the most sense. So now let me start at the beginning. The Southwest projects began on June 15th. I drove out of Austin towards Kingston, New Mexico. The idea was to spend 6 weeks in the Y pattern that I've identified before, doing strategic waterings in Arizona and New Mexico to avert drought crises, bring rain, and just kill fires, just knock fires out. Everyone that I would have talked to about this said good luck and you're nuts, but here we are 7-8 weeks later and everything came together. Everything came together on the timeline, which is amazing. But the main idea of the Southwest projects and with all of these projects is to reverse drought conditions rather than letting them get worse. The Southwest United States in 2023 in Central Texas, we had our worst droughts we've probably ever had since the 50s. 2022, the same thing for New Mexico. Arizona's been in and out. 2024 for Mexico. So this whole little region of the Southwest has been under extreme heat and drought crises for years, and particularly the last couple. And so I wanted to get in there and try this experiment, do this work to reverse this problem before it got worse. And again, that seems to be what happened. So these were the goals: no fire, no drought crises, and then hold steady or reverse the droughts in Arizona, New Mexico, Mexico, and Texas. This is the Southwest projects, and we did all that. There are a few fires under 2 acres in Arizona, and there are a few fires in Arizona and New Mexico outside of the region we can affect with this forest moisture circulation and strategic watering. But the long story short is no fires, big rains. That's what we accomplished. Now let me give you a little more detail on outcomes. Outcomes is going to cover rains, rain patterning changes, fire reduction, drought reduction, some temperature changes, and then the ROIs, the return on investment. So number 1, rains. This is the Southwest project. This is 44 days, 6 weeks, and 2 days on the road. I'm still on the road right now. I'm in Eugene, Oregon, and beginning the Northwest projects tomorrow. Let's go through this. The Southwest projects 2024. Kingston, New Mexico, Colcord Mountain Estates, Arizona, Tierras, New Mexico, El Morro, New Mexico, Sherwood Forest Estates, Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona, 4 different locations there. And this took place between June 15th and July 28th of 2024. The first site, Kingston, New Mexico, I got there on the 15th, started watering on the 16th, did 2 waterings a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, after those 10 waterings, we got perfect rain. That was our first rain. My man Gary said we raise a glass to you. This was not in the forecast, and then it came into the forecast very low, 30%, and then it went back out. It was forecast at, I think, 30% around noon that day, and instead it showed up at 7 a.m. and just rained off and on throughout the day beautifully. We had 1/3 of an inch by the time I left, and over the course of the next 12 days, they got over an inch of rain through gentle light rains, one after the other, just perfect rains. The next site was Colcord Mountain Estates. I left from Kingston on Friday the 21st and got started at Colcord in Arizona on Sunday the 23rd. I only needed to do 3 waterings there. When I got there, it was actually raining. I describe the rainmaking process as being in 4 stages. The first one is dry. The second one is converting to moist and cool. The third is moist, cool, and circulating. And then the fourth is making rain. So it was making rain when I got there, then it came back into a drier state. The rain that I saw come after the third watering was not in the forecast. It was over an inch. And then the next day we got another rain not in the forecast for over 3 inches. Counting all that as just one rainmaker rain, but the 2 rains generated there, I think, were catalyzed by the waterings that I did on site Sunday and Monday. We got rain Monday afternoon and then again Tuesday afternoon. Then I drove out to Tierras, New Mexico. I got there on Wednesday the 26th. I got 2 waterings in on Saturday the 29th, and we got rain that wasn't in the forecast that night. I watered again on Sunday, then I watered twice on Monday, and we got 2 more rains between each of the waterings. And then again on Tuesday I watered twice, and we got yet another unforecast rain that night. So 4 unforecast rains in Tierras in 4 days worth of watering. From that point, I went around July 4th to El Morro, which is what I'm calling the area, the El Morro National Monument. I didn't water then for 7 days. I went to El Morro, number one, to look at the forest system there. When I got there, I realized I probably don't need to water here. I need to go further upstream, and that's what I did. I also went there, I didn't realize it at the time, but I needed a break. I'd been going pretty solid, and I caught up a little bit on sleep when I was out there. El Morro was beautiful, but there was no rainmaking there. I hope to go back there and do that in the future. On Wednesday, then, the 10th of July, after being in El Morro basically for a week, I drove over to the Flagstaff area, and specifically to Sherwood Forest Estates. It's my site closer to Williams, about 25 miles west of Flagstaff. And then I had another site at Bow and Arrow Park in southeast Flagstaff. And we got our first rains there. Rain number 7 was actually 2 sets of drops. The first 2 waterings at Bow and Arrow Park in Flagstaff. Each of those brought drops just on our site, only on our site, not anywhere else. It's not even in the rain gauge records for Flagstaff that day. Then on Sunday, July 14th, as I finished the 9th and 10th waterings, we got rains that afternoon, and then they came back again that night. 2 sets of rains at both site areas. So that counts as 4 rains that day as compared to 1 rain for the other 2 combined. Then I had no truck for several days, and heavy rains rolled through the area and continued, and that's another subject for another video, but that's part of what we were trying to achieve, was the reestablishment of a generous and lush monsoon cycle. That began happening around the 14th, 15th of July. I started watering again, though, on Thursday the 18th, because I had clear tactile sense that even though we'd gotten a lot of rain, and even though I'd done a lot of watering already in the Flagstaff area, it was dry. Something was wrong. The air was dry and the trees were still dry. And as I started the second set of waterings at those 2 sites, the next 5 waterings for each, basically, I realized that there is exceptional drought in the litter at the landscape level. The litter you could think of as everything that's about 2 inches tall. So all the fallen twigs, all the things people cut and leave, people are constantly pruning everything. So there's debris that is ready to catch fire all over the Southwest. And particularly a couple of weeks ago, I was walking around after we had gotten probably at least 2 inches of rain on our site in Sherwood Forest Estates. I was walking around doing another watering, and it sounded like I was walking on matchsticks. It literally sounded like tinder. Crack, 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 tick, tick, tick. Everything was dry and ready to catch fire. I felt like if I dropped a match, I could set a fire, even though I had buckets of water in each hand. So that informed how I handled the rest of the Southwest projects. So I started back watering on the 18th in Sherwood Forest Estates outside of Flagstaff. By the 19th, we got rain on Flagstaff after I watered again in Flagstaff. We got 2 unforecast rains that day. I'm taking credit for both of those. Then the next day, the 20th, we got rain over Bow and Arrow Park, 0.2 of an inch, unforecast. The next day, the 21st, we did 2 more waterings. at Sherwood and Bow and Arrow Park, and we got 3/10 of an inch at Sherwood Forest Estates. This was Sunday the 21st, and that was my goal that day entirely. It was to leave Sherwood Forest Estates mushy. So I drove away from Sherwood Forest Estates, and it was moist, and it was very different from how it had been when I got there. Then Monday the 22nd, we had 3 waves of showers over our Bow and Arrow Park watering area. And on Friday the 26th, I have video of bringing rains in that actually resulted in what I call beneficial hail. We've had beneficial hail, I think, 4 times through the Southwest projects. And what that is, in a nutshell, is hail that falls that is so light it doesn't do any damage, and it just holds moisture on these landscapes that are clay-based or have thin soil, holds the moisture there longer, and it can soak in, and you don't get flooding and runoff. It's like nature is a genius. So we got the unforecast rain on Friday the 26th at the Buffalo Park, where I was watering at that point in north central Flagstaff, and that was a huge rain. That was like about an inch worth of rain, and like I said, beneficial hail. It was scary at first. But these rains, that's 18 rains. 18 rains. And that's not all I could take credit for. The long tail of rains that come because of these rains and the way that the rains kick rains around the entire system. If we had better data, better monitoring, we could probably take credit for a lot more of the moisture that has fallen in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks around here. But I do want to make you aware of 2 things about volume. So the first half of the Southwest projects was Kingston, New Mexico, Colcord Mountain Estates, Arizona, and Tierras, New Mexico. The second half was all based around Flagstaff. So I was in Flagstaff about 3 weeks and trying to bring the monsoon season in a gentle way so the whole system could recharge. And when you look at the average rain amounts in these 2 main locations, the amount of water that fell on Sherwood Forest Estates in July this year, after and because of our waterings, is 8 times greater than what fell last year. We got nearly 4 inches, 3.95 inches. In 2023, they got half an inch of rain there. This is why I went on the Southwest Projects tour. I did not want a repeat of 2023 in Arizona or New Mexico or Texas or Mexico. And Flagstaff, same thing. The Flagstaff rain in 2023 for July was half an inch, whereas we brought in something like 2.5 inches on average for the whole area. That's 5 times greater than what they got in 2023. 8 times greater at one site, 5 times greater than at the other site than what they got in 2023. I want to mention also the patterning changes that the rain making creates. And I'll just mention it. We don't have time to go through all these things, but on the 16th of July, all of the sites in the Southwest projects were forecast to have rain, and central western Mexico had been getting good rains every day for 5 days, 10 days, off and on for several weeks. So the patterning that I set out to achieve, we 110% achieved. And another example is that on Monday, July 27th, all of our sites in the Southwest projects were getting rain on that day. And all of the fires in Arizona and New Mexico in the forests had been put out at that point by the 22nd of July. It's pretty good. Let's talk about fires real quick. Speaking of fires. As of the 28th of July, when our project ended officially, there were 0 fires in Texas, and the worst drought in recent memory was correcting itself. In Mexico, same thing. 0 fires after having 120 in March, their worst fire season in recent drought history for Mexico. Now they're back to 0 active fires and healing from drought. New Mexico, no new fires except north of Taos. There's been 1 or 2 that have come and gone, but no new fires in New Mexico since around the 14th of July. All of the fires in New Mexico were out or contained by the July 21st weekend. All of them out or contained by July 21st weekend. And then on to Arizona, which has been in moderate drought most of the last 2 years. Same thing. All of the fires that are accessible in the forest zone were out or contained by the 14th or the 21st or the 28th, depending on when they started. They kept getting taken out. There are fires close to Phoenix that are hard to get to, and there are fires south of the forest section that are hard to get to. But otherwise, we've got a clean slate in Arizona of forest fires, which is the dream come true. Some of the biggest forests in America are in Arizona, believe it or not. Now, by comparison, California on the 25th of July had 22 active fires. Today's the 7th of August. By the 4th of August, the Park Fire in California was at over 400,000 acres burned. That's a grass fire, but still fire. Oregon on the 25th of July had 69 burning fires. 28 of those are south of Eugene, where I am now. So I'm here in Eugene to try and address that block of fire. Washington State, at the end of our period around the 28th of July, had 11 fires. Idaho had 13 fires. Montana had 11. Utah had 10. And Colorado has fires now that have just started this week. So again, no fires, big rains in our project area. Also, the conditions over these 3 states and Mexico have been improving. The drought monitors right before I started versus July 30, the most recent drought monitor for the United States, show New Mexico has reduced drought by 38%. The territory of lands that were droughted, there's 38% more land that's not droughted now. Texas has reduced drought 14% and Arizona 7% based on where they were. This again is in the hottest time of the year. This is the 14th record-setting heat month in a row. We had the 2 hottest days in the last 120,000 years just a couple of weeks ago in July. And all my sites are performing as if it's spring. Mexico has a 40% reduction in drought since June, and I imagine that'll go up. The drought monitors for Mexico are only monthly, not weekly, so we'll get the update on that next week. 38%, 14%, 7%, and 40% reductions in drought in summertime when drought usually gets worse. And temperatures. I haven't been doing a good job of keeping record of temperatures. There's just too many things to do and snapshots to manage and all that. But I can tell you, for instance, today at 2 p.m., it was 68 degrees in Flagstaff and in my site 30 miles west of Flagstaff, and sort of downwind and around Flagstaff. When you look at the patterning of that cold front, it's over the forests, it's over my sites that I just finished watering 2 weeks ago. And then you look over at the other sites, Kingston, New Mexico was at 72, and so on and so on. 68 degrees Fahrenheit at 2 p.m. on August 7th. That's pretty good, I think. But that's what's happening as these cool, moist systems are re-engaged and they start circulating. I would love to have help managing all the data in the future. Anybody out there? Okay, so return on investment. There's been almost no money spent relative to these returns. The water is not expensive. I'm getting it from cities or it's getting donated. The costs then are just my transportation, my food, my lodging, and my salary. So we're talking, let's say under $1 million, and well under $1 million, well under $100,000, well under $50,000 to get all these results. In terms of the amount of water, it's only 21,000 gallons literally across the 42 waterings. 21,000 gallons. That's the size of a large home swimming pool. Swimming pools range in size from 19,000 to 22,000 gallons, something like that. 21,000 gallons is a swimming pool. That's all I've used to get all of these effects. And how much effects or how much precipitation do we think we've generated with these rainmakings? Well, if you do the simple math, we have helped restore irrigation in forests that cover over 10.5 million acres of land and in the cities and communities closest to them. 10 million acres. Well, if you say we got an inch of rain across 1 million acres between the two states over the last 6 weeks, which is a low estimate. We got 3 inches of rain just on one day in Sherwood Forest Estates. We've got 1.2 over here, 0.9 over there. 1 inch of rain on 1 million acres is equal to 27 billion gallons of water. So we'll stop there. We'll just say we brought in billions of gallons of water to the system. Billions of gallons of water for almost no costs. Transportation, water, lodging, and salary. That's it. All right, so that is that's the outcomes. And what are the proofs? How do I prove it to you? Well, let me run this down real quick and see how it goes. Tell you about the things I'm going to cover here. Just 5 things. Overhead rains that only fall on us, the conditions that we're operating in, the drought reductions that have taken place, which I just mentioned, correlations at big scale, and then also bringing rain outside of the forecast. So overhead rains. The Kingston surge on the 21st, when I was watering with Mary to try and make sure we locked in the rain, all of a sudden we had a downpour, and it was only on us, only on that tree. I stopped. It stopped. I went across the street, and there was still light rain everywhere else. Now, I think we brought that rain, but I also think that surge over the one tree is a really good example of how trees intensify falling rain systems as well. The second example of overhead rains were the surges at Colcord Mountain Estates. It fell, almost literally like twice as hard in our neighborhood as it did everywhere else. And I went all the way down the mountain, a 5-mile drive, all the way into Payson, which is nearly a 40-mile drive, all the way back. We had the most rain right there at Colcord Mountain Estates. It started there, it came to there, it fell heaviest there. A third example are a couple of the rains in Tierras. So Tierras, New Mexico is just east of Albuquerque. And by the time we got to July 1st and 2nd, I'm standing there with Dominic, my new homeboy in New Mexico, and we're loading up the tanks and getting things going. And on the first, drops fall on us while we're talking. Second, same thing. We're getting drops while we're working, just at filling up the tanks. And then I go and do the rainmaking so after that, and they fall again. But those drops that fall only on you, those are the ones. On the 21st, back at Sherwood Forest Estates, we got a light rain on that Sunday. This was the one that I brought specifically. I was trying to bring for Kathy, and it just came beautifully. It did its thing for about half an hour, and then it was gone. And it left that system in a nice, lush, moist state as I drove away. It was my final day at that site. On the next day, the 22nd, at the J.W. Pierce Trail, same thing. We got drops after I finished, right overhead, right on us. And then finally, the final rain, number 18, was on the 26th of July at Buffalo Park in north central Flagstaff. And that rain was crazy. I got to watch it mount, come in, and then downpour on us, and then hail on us, and then downpour on us, and then lightly rain us. No damage. Once again, I call this beneficial hail. And it just, that's what happened. Okay, another aspect of things that prove this is more than coincidence. The conditions that we're operating in. So 2023 brought more drought disasters. We have started calling the last number of years the era of megafires. We've been having megafires since 2016. Of course, this is 2024. We're in the era of megafires, number one. For New Mexico, the fall of 2023 was an extreme and exceptional drought time. They've been in that situation basically for 9 months. And in 2022, they had exceptional drought for most of the state, March through August, all the way through their monsoon season. So that's 2 bad sort of monsoon seasons in a row. For Arizona, in the fall of 2023, their forests were in drought consistently the whole time, from September on, 9 months, and the intensity of the drought got really bad between September and the end of January. Forests need to be recharged. They can't just take abuse. They're like every other living thing. They need nourishment. Texas, 2023 was just a bad year in terms of drought. We spent most of the year in drought in central Texas. South Texas went in and out of extreme droughts, January to mid-May and July through September. And then north central Texas from Temple Belt and Waco all the way up to Dallas-Fort Worth, same thing. Bad drought. Most of 2023, most of the time. And it started to subside a little bit, but again, it's been extreme, and exceptional is worse than extreme. It's been exceptional over huge portions of the state. And so it's time to not go back into exceptional. That could be a death knell. That could cause systemic collapse or the domino effect of cascading negatives, because we've just had so much abuse over the last few years. We can't take any more. And then Mexico, the fall of 2023 for Mexico brought extreme droughts in the interior, September through November, and extreme to exceptional drought in December. So then you come to 2024, the spring of 2024, when I was thinking about all this and oh my goodness, what do I do? And Mexico was in record fires. They had around 120 fires in March, record heat, record drought. If you look at the trends, what we were just talking about, the last few years and the last decade, it's getting warmer, it's getting drier. It's not getting better, right? We need to make efforts to rebalance things. Another thing about 2024 is this is a La Nina year, and no one knows what that means anymore. We don't know if that's going to mean hot and moist or dry and cold or dry and moist or cold and hot. We don't know how to predict the weather at this point, because the climate change impacts have been so destabilizing, and I think because erosion has been so destabilizing. So we're moving into some sort of massive shift, supposedly with La Nina, but we don't know if it's good or bad, and it could be very bad. I think I mentioned it's been exceptionally hot the last 14 months. At the time that we started the Southwest Projects, it had been 12 months in a row of record-breaking months. Now we broke last year's June record and last year's July record, which were breaking the previous 2 years' records. So it's the hottest it's ever been, effectively, in civilization's history right now. And we're getting all these rains, and we're cooling things down, and we're preventing fires, and we're putting out fires. The last thing I'll say on the spring of 2024 is, I mentioned this too, I was working outdoors in Texas, and I could just tell, we're in trouble. This air coming off of Mexico is drought air, and we're already in drought, and we can't go deeper into drought because we've already been in deep, deep drought, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started looking around, and that's how I came up with this model for the Southwest Projects. Okay. I mentioned drought reduction. So again, you heard all these intense drought conditions that have been worsening. I'll just mention again, Texas has 14% less than it did at the beginning of June. Arizona, 7% less than the beginning of June. Mexico, 40% less. We are improving the conditions. We're not just making rain and preventing fire. We're flipping the system back into into making its own rain, self-circulating moisture. That's what these techniques do. We don't want things to worsen under bad conditions. We want things to improve, right? So I developed these techniques for that purpose, and they seem to be working brilliantly. Correlations. There is a lot to be said for the timing and the shape of these events. The rains typically in the Southwest Projects, they came after I watered, and they stopped when I stopped watering. The shape of the rainfall itself, I don't have the graphic capacity to put it together, but when I was in Flagstaff area, the rains were moving along the Flagstaff Meridian. When I was in Tierras area, the rains were moving along the Tierras Triangle Meridian. When I was in Kingston, the rain started from the east and crept all the way over to Arizona and up into northern New Mexico. The shape of these events seem to be determined very, very much by where I water. And there'll be more on that in the independent videos. The first or second rain in Tierras, for instance, you see the entire atmospheric circulation systems point right at us. I'll explain that more in that video when we get there. Also, we already went through some of the comparisons between 2023 and 2024. 8 times greater rain in the Sherwood Forest Estates in 2024 than 2023. 5 times greater rain in Flagstaff for July than 2023. Similar in Kingston. They got no rain in June or May of 2023. They got 1.5 inches in June of 2024. Another thing I talk about is the long tail of these rains. They repeat afterwards. So, for instance, the rains that came into Sherwood Forest Estates on the 14th, then we got heavy rain again on the 15th, strong rain on the 16th, and light rain on the 17th, then nothing on the 18th, and then again, I bring it back around the 19th. These rains that come into cycles, Kingston, that's a great example. We got perfect light rain, around 1/2 inch maybe total the first day, and then every day practically for the next 12 days up until around July 4th, they got light rain. It just started a cycle. It kicks a long tail, is what I call it, a tail of moisture cycling. The system wants to restore itself. The system wants to be moist and warm and productive. And so it naturally leans in that direction as soon as it has the resource to do that. I try and give it the resource. Rain gives it more of that resource, and then it starts to cycle again and again. These are the principles that you can work with to eliminate drought forever from forests. Another aspect of these events in terms of some proof is that they almost always arrive completely outside of the forecast. We've got 18 rains here. I think 16 of them were unforecast at the time they fell. Maybe 1 or 2 of them had a 30 to 40% chance or 20 to 40% chance of falling at that time. But almost all these rains just came when they came according to the vegetative system, and it was in sequence with the waterings. Show you that again in the independent videos, piece by piece. You can see the breakdowns on the forecasts. We consistently arrive at rain after we move through the 3 stages that I've talked about. The first is you arrive and the place is dry if it's in drought. The second is you bring it out of that. You bring it into some sort of conversion state where now it's starting to sort of stand up straight and circulate moisture. The third stage is it's cool and moist and circulating moisture. It's functioning like a healthy forest. It's starting to do that. Like your body, it's moving moisture through itself. And then the 4th stage is that it's making rain. So consistently when we get from stage 1 to stage 3 through these techniques, these strategic hydration techniques, we'll get stage 4. It's just the way it works. The only time it hasn't worked is when I went to the center of exceptional drought. And, there's just not enough rain or moisture in the sky and in the landscape in exceptional drought to make rain. That's what I learned. I was trying to do it wrong to see what would happen, and I found out it won't work. Okay, then 2 more things here. The rains that fall when we do rainmaking with trees are perfect for the landscape, again and again and again. The rains in Kingston were unbelievably light and perfect. The rains in Colcord Mountain Estates 3 days later were unbelievably heavy and scary and perfect. The rains in Tierras were vacillating between those 2 extremes. And what I've come to observe now, because I haven't just seen 18 rains, I've seen probably 30 rains on this trip. What I've come to see is that the rains, when the trees have the resource, the rains will fall in a way that makes sense for the landscape. I call it levering in one of the videos. I'm all but convinced, I'm 99% convinced that the landscape, life, and atmosphere are able to interact in ways that mediate and control the way that rain falls over a landscape. And we're going to find this out over the next couple of years, hopefully with good research. Okay, so that's it. Those are my 5 types of proofs. When I try to break it down into more specific detail, it gets so tedious. The only way I'm going to do that is with people on Zoom meetings. We can film a Zoom meeting and post that video, but trying to make a video that's tedious when, this is your graphics department, I'm not doing it. It's too much trouble, too much time, too boring. So, I hope then you've enjoyed this. And, again, I just want to say that the goals were to eliminate fire by bringing rain and circulating moisture. That's done. The next goals were to eliminate drought, the crises of drought. That's done for the moment. And now I'm up here in the Northwest hoping to send moisture all the way over to Austin, thousands of miles across the forest systems of the West. And the third thing was to hold steady or reverse drought. And that obviously is happening too through doing this. Now, I came up here well aware that it's monsoon season. But again, as I mentioned, Arizona in 2023, my two locations rather, got half an inch in July. This year they got 4 inches and 2.5 inches. This technique of rainmaking with trees is the first and best way to bring lushness back to a landscape despite whatever conditions we're in, according to the vegetation having the control. If we try to do it through plumbing and atmospheric, I don't know what they're doing, rainmaking and all this stuff, there is nothing designed this way in nature. But if we try to do it by helping our fellow creatures on Earth, specifically trees and forests, they already know how to manage water. They've already been here millions of years. Their ancestors are older than ours. They're going to do it right. And that's what all this is about, is just testing that theory. And again and again and again, I'm winning. Huge. I just need more people to know about it. I just need more people to try it. I'm convinced we can eliminate wildfire from forests forever with these techniques. And I think there's even a lot more places to go with this. So thanks for watching. This is an interruption in the Southwest Project's video cycle because I wanted to get the good news out in some sort of report form. The rest of the videos will be the various episodes from my time on the road, which has been absolutely a dream. Better than. And then next up, the Northwest projects. As I mentioned, I'm in Eugene. I'll be here for about 2 weeks, and then we'll see where I go from there. Fires are real bad in Washington, Idaho, Eugene, or Oregon right now, and could get a lot worse in California as we move into August and September. And so that's why I'm here, to head that off at the pass also, like I think we just did in New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and Mexico. All right, thanks for watching. I will see you soon. This is Chris from BioIntegrity and Rainmaking with Trees.